like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive on something pretty important, at least if you're getting Social Security.
Definitely important. A lot of people depend on those payments. So
Exactly. It can be pretty confusing though, so we got a request to take a closer look at some upcoming changes, specifically, when those payments are actually going to land in our bank accounts in January 2025.
Okay, yeah. Trying to figure out the timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Someone sent over this article from Finance Buzz. It's called January Social Security Payments Are Officially Bigger. When Will Yours Arrive? I think we can definitely break this down, make sure everybody knows what to expect, maybe even find some hidden details along the way. What do you think?
Sounds good to me. I mean, there's always something new to discover with Social Security, even for folks who think they've got it all figured out.
Right. Like, okay, first things first. The big news everyone's been waiting for. Social Security payments are getting a boost in January, a 2.5% boost.
Okay, yeah, the cost of living adjustment.
Right, exactly. The key colet. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of when that money hits our accounts, could you just take a minute to explain key colet to our listeners? What is it, and why should we care?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so think of colet as like a protection against inflation. It's there to make sure your Social Security benefits keep up with rising costs. Like how much you pay for food at the grocery store or filling up your gas tank. Without C-Colet, your benefits would buy less every year because everything keeps getting more expensive, and that would make it a lot harder to cover those basic expenses.
That makes total sense. So basically, it helps protect our buying power.
Exactly.
Okay. But here's where things get kind of interesting. The Finance Buzz article, it mentions that this 2.5% increase might not be enough for everyone.
Yeah, that's a common concern, especially with how high inflation is right now.
Right. And actually, some advocacy groups are saying that the way they calculate Chick-fil-A right now, it doesn't really reflect the real cost that seniors are facing.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely a debate about whether the current Terrelay calculation accurately reflects the real expenses that seniors are dealing with, especially when it comes to things like healthcare. Those costs are just skyrocketing, right?
Exactly, yeah. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's definitely a valid concern. The way they calculate KLA is based on this thing called the Consumer Price Index for Urban Wage Earners and Clerical Workers, or CPIW.
Oh, wow. A mouthful.
Yeah. But the problem is it might not fully capture how retirees actually spend their money, especially when it comes to healthcare, like we were just saying.
Okay.
And there's some folks who think they should use a different index, like the CPIE, the Consumer Price Index for the elderly. It gives more weight to things like healthcare costs, so it might be a more accurate reflection of how prices are increasing for older folks.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense. Seems like there's definitely room for improvement there.
I agree.
All right. So we know we're getting a boost, but now let's talk about when that money is actually going to show up. The article gives a specific breakdown of when to expect those payments in January. And get this, it's all based on your birthday.
Yes, the infamous birthday rule.
Right. It sounds a little strange at first, but it actually makes sense.
Yeah, it helps spread out the payments so it's not all happening on the same day.
Exactly. So for those of us who are lucky enough to have birthdays between the 1st and 10th of the month, our payment should arrive on January 8th. Mark your calendars.
Got it.
Then for those born between the 11th and 20th, you'll see those payments on January 15th.
Okay.
And finally, if your birthday falls between the 21st and 31st, you'll be getting your payment on January 22nd.
So birthday's later in the month, a bit of a wait.
Yeah, got to be patient. But, okay, now let's talk about a slightly different program, Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. It's really important for a lot of people, but it works on a different timeline than regular Social Security. Can you give us a quick rundown of who might qualify for SSI and when they can expect their payments?
Sure. So SSI is for people who are aged, blind, or disabled and have limited income and resources. It's basically a safety net to help those folks cover basic necessities.
Okay, a safety net.
Yeah, exactly. So those SSI payments usually come on the first of the month, but here's the catch. Since January 1st, 2025 is New Year's Day, a holiday.
Oh, right.
Those SSI payments will actually be sent out early on December 31st, 2024.
Wow. Okay, so even earlier. Good to know.
Yeah, it's a little something to keep in mind, especially if you're relying on those funds to, cover expenses right at the start of the year.
Absolutely. Now, the article also mentions some exceptions to this birthday rule. It made me wonder, who are these folks who get their payments on a different day?
Yeah. It's like a hidden rule almost. So This exception applies to people who started getting Social Security benefits before May 1997.
Okay, before 97. Got it.
Yeah. And also to people who are getting both Social Security and SSI.
Interesting.
And then there are those folks whose Medicare premiums are actually paid by their state. They fall under this exception, too.
Oh, okay.
And lastly, anyone living outside the U.S., they also get their payments on a different day.
Wow, so there are quite a few exceptions.
Yeah, more than you might think.
That's definitely good information to have. So if any of those situations apply to you, double check your payment date, just to be sure. But what happens if your payment doesn't arrive when you expect it? I mean, that can be really stressful.
Oh, absolutely. It's important to know what to do. First of all, don't panic right away. The article says to wait 3 business days before doing anything.
Okay, so give it a little time.
Right. Sometimes, there are just processing delays. But after 3 days, if the payment still hasn't shown up, then it's time to start checking things out.
All right, so what should we do?
Well, the article recommends double-checking with your bank just to see if the payment is maybe pending or something. And it's also a good idea to make sure all your contact info is up to date on the Social Security Administration's website.
Okay, makes sense.
You'd be surprised how often something as simple as an address change can cause delays.
Right. It's those little details that can trip us up. But let's say you've checked everything and your payment is still missing. What's the next step?
At that point, it's best to contact the Social Security Administration directly. You can call them or visit a local office. They can help you figure out what's going on and hopefully get your payment sorted out.
Okay, so being proactive is key. Don't just sit around and wait.
Exactly. It's much better to address the issue head on and get the help you need.
Now that we've covered the nitty-gritty of those payment details, I want to shift gears a bit and talk about the bigger picture of Social Security. This Finance Buzz article was all about those January payments, but I'm curious about the long-term outlook. Is Social Security, truly sustainable?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And to be honest, it's a topic that deserves a deep dive all on its own.
Okay, so we'll have to save that discussion for another time.
Definitely. There's a lot to unpack there.
But before we go, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember from this part of our conversation?
I think the most important thing is to be informed and proactive, know how these changes might affect you, and don't hesitate to reach out for help if you need it. There are resources available, and you don't have to navigate this alone.
Great advice. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to these important financial matters. Hashtag TTS, the Deep Dive episode 2024-1230, part 2 of 3. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. We just spent some time breaking down those upcoming changes to Social Security payments, the ones happening in January 2025. But now I kind of want to shift gears a little bit, talk about something that, honestly, a lot of people are worried about, the long-term sustainability of Social Security.
Yeah, it's a big question, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's something that comes up a lot, and it can cause a lot of anxiety.
Absolutely. It's a really complex issue, a lot of factors at play.
Okay, so I guess let's just jump right in. What are some of the biggest challenges facing Social Security that are, causing people to worry about its future?
Well, demographics are a huge factor. People are living longer these days, which is great news.
Yeah, of course.
But it also means that people are collecting Social Security benefits for a longer period of time.
Okay, so more years of payments.
Right. And at the same time, birth rates have been declining. So there are fewer people working and paying into the system to support all those retirees.
So it's like a shrinking pool of money coming in, but more people needing to take money out.
Yeah, exactly. Classic supply and demand issue. And when demand starts to outpace supply, something's got to give. And in the case of Social Security, it could mean benefit cuts or tax increases or maybe even both.
That's a little scary.
Yeah.
It seems like we need to find a way to balance the needs of people who are retired right now with the needs of, future retirees.
Yeah, definitely. Finding that balance is key.
What are some of the solutions, the things people are talking about doing to fix this problem?
Well, one idea that's been floating around for a while is raising the retirement age, gradually increasing it so people have to work a little longer before they can get full benefits.
But that seems kind of tough. I mean, people look forward to retiring.
I know. It's definitely a trade-off. It would help Social Security last longer, but it also means some folks would have to work later than they planned. And that might not be possible for everyone. Some people have health issues or family responsibilities that make it hard to work past a certain age.
So it's like we have to weigh the financial stability of the program against, the needs of individual people. Tough choices.
Yeah, it's all about finding the right balance.
What are some other ideas?
Another proposal is increasing the payroll tax. So, the tax that funds Social Security.
Oh, so workers and employers would pay more.
Yeah, basically. It would be a slight increase, but, any increase in taxes is a sensitive topic.
For sure. Not everyone's going to be happy about that.
Right. It's definitely a debate. Some people say it's absolutely necessary to save Social Security, while others worry about the impact on, lower and middle income workers.
Yeah, that makes sense. It has to be fair. Are there any other ideas out there, ones that are maybe a little less controversial?
Well, some experts have suggested investing a portion of Social Security funds in the stock market.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. But isn't the stock market really risky?
It can be, yeah. There's always the possibility of losing money.
Right.
But the people who support this idea, they argue that over the long term, the stock market has the potential to earn much higher returns than, say, just keeping the money in government bonds. And those higher returns could really help boost Social Security's finances and maybe even allow them to increase benefits down the road.
So it's like a gamble, but potentially a big payoff.
Exactly. Of course, it involves a lot of complicated financial predictions and modeling.
I bet. It's like trying to predict the future.
Kind of, yeah. It's definitely not a sure thing.
Okay. So raising the retirement age, increasing taxes, investing in the stock market. Those are some pretty big changes.
They are. And they all have potential downsides.
I've also heard about this idea called means testing.
Ah, yes. Means testing.
Yeah, basically meaning that, wealthier people would get smaller benefits.
Right. That's the idea. It's another one of those controversial proposals.
Okay, so what are the arguments for and against that one?
Well, the people who support means testing, they say it's the fairest way to make sure Social Security survives. It targets the benefits to the people who need them the most, lower income retirees, and it saves money overall. But the critics argue that it basically changes the whole idea of Social Security. It was always meant to be a universal program. And they also worry that it discourages people from saving for retirement, because if you're not going to get much from Social Security anyway, why bother saving?
That's a good point. It seems like, like every solution has its pros and cons. And it's kind of hard to know what the best approach is. It's all a little overwhelming, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a lot to digest.
What advice would you give to, our listeners who are trying to plan for their retirement with all this uncertainty about Social Security?
Well, it's natural to feel anxious about it, given the challenges facing the program. But it's important to remember that Social Security is just one part of your retirement plan. It shouldn't be the only thing you're relying on. So my advice would be to focus on the things you can control. Build a strong retirement plan that includes savings, investments, and maybe even consider finding ways to create some extra income.
So basically, don't put all your eggs in the Social Security basket.
Exactly. The more you can do to build your own financial security, the less you'll have to worry about what happens with Social Security. It's all about taking control of your own future.
That makes a lot of sense. And it definitely takes some of the pressure off. Speaking of planning for retirement, I actually have a question about taxes. I know it's not directly related to this article, but while we're on the topic, how are Social Security benefits taxed?
Oh, good question. It's something a lot of people don't know about. So basically, whether or not you have to pay taxes on your Social Security benefits depends on your combined income. That includes your regular income, any non-taxable interest you have, and then half of your Social Security benefits.
Wait, half? Why only half?
It's a weird little quirk in the tax code. The idea is to prevent what they call double taxation. You've already paid taxes on your earnings while you were working, right? So they only tax a portion of your Social Security benefits.
Okay, so it's like they're giving you a break, in a way.
Exactly. But, even with that break, you still might owe taxes.
Right. So how does this whole combined income thing work? Like, are there specific income levels that determine how much of your benefits get taxed?
Yep. There are thresholds, and they're different depending on whether you file your taxes as single or married. So if you're single and your combined income is between $25,000 and $34,000, up to 50% of your Social Security benefits could be taxable. And then if your combined income is over $34,000, up to 85% of your benefits could be taxed.
Wow. Okay. So it really depends on your income level.
It does. And for married couples filing jointly, the thresholds are a little different. Between $32,000 and $44,000, up to 50% of your benefits could be taxed. And then over $44,000, it goes up to 85%.
Okay, so it's definitely something to keep in mind when you're planning your retirement finances. You don't want any surprises come tax time.
Exactly. And of course, these thresholds can change. Congress can always tweak the tax laws. So it's important to stay up to date and, maybe even talk to a financial advisor to see how these rules apply to your specific situation.
Good point. It sounds like staying informed is key. Okay, so we've talked about the financial side of things, but I'm also kind of curious about the personal impact of all these changes. Like, how might these changes to Social Security, both the upcoming payment adjustments and, the bigger concerns about sustainability, how might all of that affect people's lives?
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. All this uncertainty, it could lead to some tough choices for individuals and families. Some folks might have to delay retirement or pick up a part-time job just to make ends meet. Others might need to make some lifestyle changes, maybe downsize their homes or cut back on certain expenses.
So it could be a time of, really reevaluating priorities.
Exactly. But I also think it's an opportunity, a chance to rethink what retirement really means. Maybe it's a chance to pursue hikes or spend more time with family and friends.
Or finally travel.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. It's about finding new sources of fulfillment, things that bring you joy.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So even with all the challenges, there's still hope for a happy and meaningful retirement.
Definitely. And I think that's a really important message to get across.
Absolutely. This has been a really, really insightful conversation. We've talked about a lot, those upcoming payment adjustments, the sustainability of Social Security, the importance of proactive retirement planning. But before we get to our final takeaways, I think it's time to offer some practical tips and resources for, navigating all of this with confidence. Stay tuned. #TTS The Deep Dive, episode 2024-1230, part 3 of 3. And we're back. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of big picture stuff with Social Security, payment changes, sustainability, retirement planning, all that good stuff. But now I kind of want to get down to brass tacks,
Okay, yeah, getting practical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What are some actual steps people can take, like today, to feel more prepared and, less stressed about all this?
Well, information is key, right? I always say knowledge is power, especially when it comes to navigating these complex systems.
Totally agree. So where should people start? Where can they find reliable information about all things Social Security?
Well, the Social Security Administration's website, ssa.gov, it's an amazing resource, honestly.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You can check your earnings history, look at your benefits, even apply for benefits, all online, no more dealing with paperwork.
Wow, that's super convenient. But what if you need help, like actually understanding all that information? It can be a lot to take in.
They actually have tutorials and webinars, too, right there on the website. It's like having a personal Social Security expert walk you through everything.
Okay, that's awesome. I'll have to check those out. But, sometimes you just need to talk to a real person, someone who can, answer your specific questions.
Yeah, for sure. That's where a financial advisor can be really helpful.
Okay, so personalized advice.
Yeah, exactly. They can look at your whole situation, your goals, your risk tolerance, and help you create a retirement plan that really works for you. Think of them as your financial coach.
That makes sense. Having an expert in your corner can definitely make a big difference. But, it's not just about the financial side of retirement. It's a big life change, right?
Totally. It can be a time of, reinvention, a chance to explore new things, try new hobbies.
Yeah, finally write that novel you've always dreamed of.
Exactly. It's about finding those things that give you energy and purpose. Maybe it's volunteering or mentoring or just, spending more time with the people you love.
So it's about more than just money. It's about living a fulfilling life.
Yeah. Crafting a retirement that aligns with your values and, what you want to get out of life.
I love that. So even with all the uncertainty surrounding Social Security, there's still a lot to look forward to. What would you say is the one most important thing people should remember as they're planning for retirement?
I think the key is to be, first of all, proactive. Don't just wait for things to happen. Take control of your own future. And then stay informed. Keep up with the changes. Do your research. And finally, be adaptable. Things are always changing, and you need to be able to adjust your plans as you go.
Great advice. I think that's a perfect note to end on. Be proactive, informed, and adaptable. And remember, retirement can be an amazing time of growth and, just plain fun. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Social Security. I hope you learned something new today, and I hope you will join us again next time for another fascinating exploration of, well, whatever topic you send our way.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made up.